We now come to item number 13 on the agenda, which is the first of 3 items referred to governing body by audit and risk. I'll ask Emma Mosley to come to the table, please. And Councillor Newman, I think, is online. Councillor Newman's the Deputy Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. Councillor Newman, are you online? We think you're there, Daniel. Can you?
Yeah. Look, can you hear me, Your Worship?
Yep, I can hear you. So that's good. Look,
Sorry,
this paper is a standard quarterly report on the enterprise risk update, so it should be quite straightforward. But if I can ask you to move that, and perhaps Deputy Mayor Cashmore also on the committee to second it, and would you like to introduce it? I'm just waiting to see if we've got Emma here somewhere. Yeah, Emma's just at the back there, coming forward now. Yeah, that's not.
Look, I'm happy to move it, Your Worship. If Councillor Cashmore's happy to second that, this is a standard item for the Audit and Risk Committee, the risk update, and Emma Mosley reports on that. The committee gave consideration to this matter at the previous meeting, and I commend the recommendations to the governing body.
Thank you very much. Emma or Mark, would you like to add anything to Councillor Newman's comments?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good morning, everyone. Apologies, we thought you might take 3 more minutes on the previous item to get around that. This is our standard report as has been tabled just now, and we'll take the report as read. We're here really to answer any questions. The reporting was done on the 18th of May, and since then there's been a few events being handled by the Waikato District Health Board. These risk events are moments that can help us all by teaching us about the value of risk management, I believe, and so it's useful to pause and learn from what is happening, and I know that Mark Denver and his team and council is doing such things. I wanted to provide assurance that the council's position in relation to the cyber events is stable, but of course we are having to do some work and be very alert and make sure that our controls are as strong as they can be. And there has been quite a bit of action and activity in that space. Mark Denver is on his way over here to answer any of your questions. He may be walking in a minute, but I can also answer questions if you have. But I can provide assurance that our systems are okay, and that we are working hard to keep them so. But yes, it's one of those moments when you can see in real time what happens if a risk event happens, and then how quickly you're able to respond. So all the work that is done across council to manage our risks, and our top risks reported here, is critical to being able to make sure we are ready. We're minimising the chance that something might happen, but we're also ready if it does, and we can then respond and continue to do what we need to do for the community. I should have introduced at the beginning Mark Maloney to my left. Mark Maloney is the General Manager of Risk and Assurance, and is here today to answer questions as well, if you have any. The other points that I'd note in the report today is that we are in full flight with more work in the assessment of our performance, adaptability, strategic relationships and resilience top risks. So in the next report that you receive, there'll be more information around controls and management of those risks. But overall, the risk profile is stable, no new top risks identified, some risks that are trending up, but more work is being done to manage those in response, and happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Mark, anything you want to add to that?
No, nothing to add, but more than happy to take any questions on the report.
Yeah, I think top of mind for everybody, as you've picked up on, Emma, is the cybersecurity risks, and we see the devastation as well as the the privacy breaches that have been wrought by the criminal cyber security breaches created for the health board. But if Mark gets here in time, he'll be the appropriate person to ask. If not, I may ask the Chief Executive actually to organise a report for us in due course, because I think we would like some assurance that our systems are robust and that this sort of thing could not easily happen to us. I don't think you can ever say it won't happen to us, but that we have got the protections set out. But meanwhile, I've got two questions. First one in the name of Councillor Cathy Casey.
Might need Mark. It was really to ask about the incursions or the attempted incursions that we often get from China and Russia, and to see whether that's increased in recent times, and if we know where it's coming from. Is it still international? And my second question relates to, if we do get a ransomware attack and we are disabled, do we have a backup system? So are we completely disabled, or are we still running?
If I can ask our Chief Executive, Jim Stabbock, to answer that. He's had discussions as early as this morning. It is the key issue. So, Jim, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor. Yes, the executive leadership team and I met with Mark, our head of technology, this morning to address, and here he is walking into the room so he can correct anything I say that's inaccurate. We did, in fact, talk at length about these issues. We are, of course, subject to attacks all the time, and I'm confident that the systems that we have in place do a very good job of handling those incoming potential disruptions to our service. We do understand through our conversations through Mark with the Chief Information Officer at Waikato, the nature of the attack that has disabled their systems. We are confident that should a similar attack have been made on Auckland Council, that it was a phishing attack, it was an email that went to a staff member at Waikato and they clicked on it in error. We're confident that that email would never have made it into an inbox of a staff member at Auckland Council for that particular type of phishing attack. Of course, these things are happening all the time, and this field is evolving all the time, and so we have an obligation to maintain the currency of the defence systems that we have in place in order to deal with that. I'm confident through our discussions with Mark that we are in a good place in that respect, but of course we have to continue to invest both in the systems and capabilities that we have to automatically detect those potential risks and deal with them, as well as training our people to ensure that they are attuned to the sorts of things that might lead to a disruption. The second question that was asked, Mark, as you were coming into the room, was around the extent to which we have adequate backup of data that we could access in the event that we needed to. I'll let you answer that question.
Through the chair. Obviously quite timely, gave Jim and the rest of the executive a brief about this morning. For an example, in the data capture, we do have adequate backups of all of our core systems. We have what is called a return to service plan, which means we test the restore from those backups of those systems and how long it takes us to stand our systems up. We have, again, through the procurement strategic committee, we undertook a project which is called multi-cloud, which is actually changing the back end of our data centres and where our systems lie. That actually is going to mean we're going to review our return to system, because we have far more capability and a lot more security footprint in the way we're storing our data. So we're about to embark again on another review of how do we improve our return to service. But at the moment we have a plan which we test on a regular basis, all of our applications to restore, so we know how long those things take. And that is, again, it's an evolving part of our world. As we land the new infrastructure, we believe we'll become far more effective and efficient, which means we'll be able to do it with, instead of multiple days to weeks, we should be able to start seeing the time to return to be quite quick.
Just a supplementary, Mr. Chairman.
Supplementary.
Finally get what the multi-cloud does after all this time. My second question was about the attacks internationally that we've been getting for some time from China and Russia. Is it still them predominantly, and is it increasing?
So yes, the nation states, so there are probably 3 to 4 actors that are in that space: Russia, China, North Korea, and some of them are nation, and some of them are, I suppose, groups that are supported by those nation states. The reality is, yes, they are on the increase, and as if you can see what happened to the American government, it is what we call a 0-day attack. That's when the actor finds the vulnerability before the system provider knows there's a hole in their system, and they take advantage of that, and they actually swarm through, usually through geolocations, that attack. And there is no way you can defend against those things. And the reality is, we're reasonably lucky in our geolocation that we're not an easy or seen as a target. But the reality is, we will never be able to defend ourselves against the nature of that attack. What we can do, though, is once you're breached, you can determine that you have been breached and how quickly you close down and quarantine. And we have the tools in place that allow us to do that. And then again, it's so how do you then return to service? But more of those are coming, and it's ever changing.
Can I ask a follow-up question on that? What I understand that happened in Waikato was that there was an email sent in, and when they opened the attachment, that's how the malware got into the system. Aside from training people which is really hard to identify that this was something you shouldn't open, not quite sure how you train people to do that. What other protections have you got from that sort of thing happening, say, to our systems in exactly the same way?
Sorry, through the chair. There's a couple of ways that you can approach that particular problem, and none of them are particularly, 100% foolproof. So the first one is ensuring you've got what's called endpoint protection, which effectively is looking at every email that comes in. And so we screen absolutely every email that comes into the Auckland Council domain. And as part of that, we have some software that looks for signatures, and those signatures are based on atypically a phishing attack they're written in a particular way. So we understand what those signatures are. So if we see, like, for an example, the one that's happened at Waikato, that signature can be recognised by that screening before it actually arrives at us and stops that email coming, but it's not foolproof. You will still get...
That's an automatic process. It doesn't rely on an individual.
Correct. Yep, that's all automated. The other component part is and we have to accept we will be breached, and that will occur in our space. We have some other capability, which is, for an example, my colleague here to the right, Councillor Young, on his device may be a person that has clicked on one of those phishing attacks. What we understand is suddenly this device is now trying to talk to other computers in our network and trying to access data which is irregular. It's never happened before. And so we will automatically quarantine that device so it actually can't spread through. That is capability that the DHB didn't have. So, even when, and it is when we are breached, we recognise when people are trying to traverse our network to do things that is not what we would expect to see, and we start to lock things down, which means, we can't stop them, but we accept we will be breached. When we're breached, we sort of close things down as quickly as we can so we can start to remediate.
What I think we might do at some point is have a confidential briefing on this, because I'd hate you to be sharing our defences with those that might be wanting to attack us. So I won't persist in that line of questioning. Councillor Casey, you'd finished your questions. Councillor Richard Hills.
Kia ora. Thank you, Chair. It's more of a high level just on the climate change risks. We obviously look long-term our infrastructure and the effects to Auckland Council property, but how much are we looking at the short term on the reputational and potential legal risks by not acting or not doing enough, etc.?
Thank you. Through the chair, is a good question. Climate change risk is addressed in this enterprise risk update. It is one of Council's top risks, and the legal risks are one consideration, and the reputational impacts of Council not acting as we have committed to, or our objectives that we have set ourselves, is significant, and so they are factored into the risk assessment and into the actions that we're taking around that risk. We are embarking now on the work, further work around climate change risk as one of the 5 fingers, I'm calling them now, to our resilience top risk. So if you think of a hand with 5 fingers, we have 5 key areas relating to resilience, one being climate change, also our assets and infrastructure. Cyber systems is absolutely critical. People and people resilience is the 4th finger. And what was this? Can someone name me the 5th finger that we're looking at? I've got it written down. Customers, our customer channels. If we don't have those all resilient and all ready for any disruption from external or other events, and we aren't factoring them into our decision making, then we will not be managing our risks well, and that's how we're working through those challenges right now.
Perfect. Thank you, and thank you for putting a lot of focus in that area.
Thank you. Last question is Councillor Wayne Walker.
So I've got a few questions, 2 of which I won't ask. I'll keep them offline. So the one question I've got is just around whether we're benchmarking ourselves with other cities, possibly cities that have got similar systems to us, so that we understand that we've got best practice, because all of local government, not just in New Zealand but elsewhere, is over this. And I would expect that local government in the United States is maybe more advanced than us, may not be. Certainly locations like Taiwan, I think, would be up with the play. I don't know.
Through the chair, yes, we do have. So we have also gone down the path of creating a strategic partner who helps us look at what the rest of the security world and government around the world is and how they're reacting. So we have a strategic partner who helps us understand the nature of what is actually happening out with the rest of the world, what are their responses, while Council, we need to be good at security in our landscape, and we partner with people who help us understand what's best. We also then connect in quite closely with central government and capabilities that they have as well.
Thank you. We come now to comments. If there's any comments, Councillor Linda Cooper.
Thank you. I think if anything's come out of this Waikato DHB incident is that they didn't spend the money where they needed to, and that, over the years we've all gone, oh my God, these things cost so much, but actually the risk of not spending the money to get the right systems in place and train people is much greater than the perception of spending too much, but actually can't spend enough on this.
I think that's a point well made. I should have said to officers, thank you very much. We've finished the questions, so appreciate your being here and the information you've given us. Right, Councillor Wayne Walker.
I just had a comment, and it's based on my personal experience visiting some cities and some sister cities overseas, especially in Taiwan, also South Korea, and there are other locations. And I spoke with people on occasion around their defences around cyber security and the like, obviously not in any detail, but they certainly assured me that they were very advanced, because if you talk about Korea, they've got sustained ongoing attacks from North Korea. Taiwan, I don't want to tell you about what they experience, but it's I'd suggest that it's a really higher level of above anything that we experience. And often we've got sister city relationships, we've got ongoing relationships. Sure, we can have strategic partners, but I've got a real concern that our council has generally become more and more insular in terms of where we're at, that may be through cost savings and all sorts of things. But I don't know that our engagement with other cities and what we can learn from them, often in absolute confidence and quite free is something that we avail ourselves of enough.
Thank you, Councillor. I mentioned during my earlier question that it might be good to have a discussion in confidence on cybersecurity threats and what we're doing to protect ourselves against them. And I'll suggest that maybe in a couple of weeks at the All Councillors meeting on a Monday that we set that aside for that purpose. The recommendation is to receive the enterprise risk update. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. I declare that carried.